Good evening, everybody. It's the Fitchburg Airport Municipal Airport Commission meeting, June 15th. It's 11 past 6, starting a little late. I apologize. Members in attendance, to my far right, Rich Liberatore. To my right, Airport Manager Peter Kettle. Myself, Clayton Raymond, Chair. And to my left is David Genesi, Commissioner. And we're waiting on Beth Walsh. She should be here shortly. Also, members in attendance in the audience, Mary Jo Bohart, and we have Gale Associates, we have Matt Karen, and Jackie Marks. Thank you for coming. All right.
Mr. Chair, may I just make some apologies, please?
Yep.
The Mayor offers his apologies for not being here because he's attending the School Commission training meeting, and he offers his apologies. He said he'd sooner be here. And Deb Silver apologises due to end-of-year finalisation of the financials at the airport. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks. All right, let's get things started with previous month's minutes approval to include special meeting minutes. We didn't have a special meeting minutes at last approval, in May?
For April's meeting, yep.
Yeah, so looking for approval, for a motion to approve for April's minutes.
Yep,
We were
April's.
canceled May. So.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion to approve, vote.
Aye.
3-0
Aye.
right now. All right, go right into action items from previous minutes. I don't have the previous minutes. My printer was out of black ink. I'm just going to assume we're going to go through action items as they appear on old business.
We can assume that.
Yeah. Correspondence to the commission. I didn't receive anything. Peter?
None at the airport for you.
Item 3, Gale review of ongoing work. We're ready. If you have anything going on, which I'm sure you do.
We do. So I'll just jump right in on the master plan project, try to keep it pretty brief this evening. So the last time we met was in April, and since that time we received some comments from Mass Department of Transportation on the alternatives chapter for the master plan. Some, relatively minor in nature, the revisions. So we incorporated those into the airport layout plan. The major thing was a comment about the size of the helicopter pad. So we just did a little bit of an evaluation, incorporated that into Chapter 5, which has been revised. And I'll provide a copy after this meeting of, all of the revised items. But just making sure that on the airport layout plan, the helicopter landing pad is reflective of current standards, dimensional standards. So that has been updated, and then there was a couple of comments with just making sure that wingtip clearances in buildings were being portrayed accurately. So very, very minor revisions, but we'll get those out to the commission. The other item, recently, we received a response to the OE AAA request. If you recall, back in March, we submitted requests for determination related to the utility poles that are along Crawford Street in Leominster in the runway 3-2 approach. And we received a response from the obstruction evaluation team on the 9th of June, and then subsequently, actually yesterday, met with that individual to just kind of discuss what was contained in the letters. You'll see at the back of the packet here that we provided a notice of preliminary findings. This is just for poll 1. They issued one for each of the polls, but they're the same information essentially, other than, you know, the poll numbers and specific heights related to the polls. What we gathered from that meeting is that these polls are most likely going to need to be lit, but that individual does want to go back and meet with his team and just confirm that there are no additional actions required of the airport with respect to the utility poles. So we're still on hold, waiting for a response from FAA at this time, if there are any other requirements. But right now, it looks like lighting the poles will be the solution. Any questions?
Please.
Yes, sir.
It just went straight through my mind when you said that. Because it's due to safety, this is the whole idea of having them alight, right?
Yes,
Does that qualify for an ASMP grant?
I would say yes.
It could, right? So, all right, that's good, which means we'd have to pay 20%
Yeah.
instead of the 100%. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the person making this determination works for the FAA?
Yep,
So
they're-
we're waiting on them. They're aware of it. He's just double checking.
Yep, he just had to reach out to his manager just to confirm a few more details. This was just his notice of his preliminary findings, and we figured where we had the commission meeting coming up, we'd try to meet with him and get as much information as we could
Yeah.
to be prepared, you know, for tonight, but still waiting on a response if there are additional requirements related to those polls.
Okay, so you don't need an action from the commission on those polls tonight?
No,
Yeah.
no. So if there are no other questions about the polls, I can move on to the rest of the update.
Yeah, the helicopter pad we have now in place, is it too small? to
Yeah, the
today's
the
standards?
safety areas, it seems to have been expanded since the time the helicopter pad was originally constructed, but you'll see in Chapter 5, I go through now and really evaluate the existing pad and then what, you know, should be there as far as safety areas are concerned. And then also, again, just added that area to the airport layout plan so that it's reflected that it needs to be, you know, needs to be a little bit bigger.
Good. I'm glad somebody's paying attention anyways. We were just checking them. Okay.
Okay, so I'll just move on with the rest of the update, if that's okay. So what we'll do from here is we're going to update the relevant chapters of the master plan and ALP to incorporate lighting of those utility poles for the time being until we hear back from FAA. There may be additional changes that we will add, you know, as appropriate. But basically, what we're going to request tonight is a formal vote from the commission to allow Gale to submit the airport layout plan through the OEAAA process. So that's basically FAA's portal for submitting documentation for review by various FAA entities that would need to take a look at the airport layout plan. And that airport layout plan to be submitted would, of course, include those changes that I mentioned, small dimensional changes, the helicopter landing pad, and then the lighting of the poles. We would update to include that as well. Again, that it would still be in draft format under review and wouldn't actually be formally approved until, you know, it went through that process. We received comments from FAA, you know, various entities of FAA, and then incorporate any additional changes that are needed before that would go out for formalization, signatures, approval, that type of thing. And then, of course, I'll provide updated copies of all of that documentation to the commission following the meeting tonight. So if I could have request a vote from the commission or any additional questions before allowing Gale to submit the ALP for review through OEAAA.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. How long do you expect the FAA to be reviewing it after we request?
The minimum review period is typically 45 days, but we've been seeing it take a little bit longer in some cases to review. So there certainly is, there will be quite a bit of time between, the submission and getting the comments back. But if we can at least get that, begin that review process and get that on their radar, again, small revisions and things can be made after it is submitted.
Yep.
3 to 4 months would not be unusual.
Wow. Okay. All right, I would like to motion a vote to allow Gail to submit the ALP to FAA for review. Do I have any second?
Sure. Second.
Vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep.
So just moving on, the last couple of items on the agenda, the environmental assessment and wildlife hazard assessment. No updates at this time, still waiting on the grant to be issued for that project. And then getting into the other items on page 3, backup generator. Gail's electrical engineer is in the process of sizing the backup generator. I guess they're waiting on 12 months of utility invoices in order to determine the peak demand, and then still waiting on the IFE for that project. And then no update from Gail on the hangar door or roof replacements.
Are you waiting on the 12 months of utility invoices, or do you have that?
I don't know. I would ask Peter Kettle, who's probably been working with Nick Ippolito from my office. I'm assuming
I
there's
have.
been
We
communication.
actually supplied the amount of kilowatt hours that were used over the year. And your engineer, not Nick, but the one that he contacted, your electrical engineer, he came back asking for the demand. We cannot supply the demand because it's not in the documentation that we received, so we can't honor that. Maybe he can work it back from what the usage was to the demand as a percentage or something, but that's what I would suggest.
So you have the kilowatt usage that was sent over?
Yes,
You just, yeah, okay.
and that's what we've paid for. That's in the bill, the monthly bill.
Okay.
But there's no demand on it at all. So if you could let them know, please. I was going to
Will do.
go back with an email, which I'll do tomorrow in any case. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Peter.
I knew you would know the answer to that.
Any other questions or items for Gail tonight?
Not a
Yes.
question, just an update for
Sure.
item 2. The hangar doors. 2 hangar doors, one for hangar 2 and one for hangar 3. The hangar 2 door is now installed. It looks amazing. It's transformed that hangar that is almost 95 years old. It's made it look like a new hangar. It's amazing. And they're doing hangar 3 next week. So by the time we have the next meeting, they'll all be up and running. And the hangar roof replacements, we had a little bit of a hang-up on that because originally MassDOT said they had the money, and then they said they didn't have the money, and they told us to hang on. And then they said, yes, we've got the money, so you can go ahead. So we went ahead, and then there was a little bit of a hiccup, and we were told to hold. So I held, and then 2 or 3 days later, they came back saying that you can do it. Well, too late. The company that was doing the work, the contractor, couldn't sit doing nothing for 3 days because he has to pay his people. So he went to another job. So now I'll be meeting with Owen to see what we can do maybe in the first part of 2023.
Which is July 1st.
Exactly.
Any other questions for Gail items? Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie, appreciate it. Thank you, Matt.
Of course.
Bear with me, I don't have my paper today.
Okay.
Item 4, Fitchburg Pilots Association, update Young Eagles. I know they wanted to have an event last month, did not ask for permission. Tried to get the event to go on anyhow, but in the end, we had to cancel, so Yes, waiting for an update.
Okay, the update basically is I made a presentation last night to the Pilots Association, and that came up and they said there's no written document that actually says that they have to ask us to get permission to have a Young Eagles event. So I had actually contacted George Pantelli at the FAA, and he said, yes, there is. Nobody can go on to a grant-approved airport and have an event without getting approval to do so.
Of course.
So today I called George and I asked him for the documentation in written formats as I could forward it. He can't find anything. But it is protocol, out of common courtesy, for anybody that wants to do something on the airport to actually ask the commission if they can do it. And this, I believe, is also a bylaw within the city. Any event that's a public event has to be approved by the city council. And I believe the commission acts on behalf of the city council under those conditions. So I actually contacted Tom Hurley, who's the executive director of MAMA, Massachusetts Airport Management Association, and I asked him what the protocol was. He says, Peter, every airport in Massachusetts has great pilots associations. They all ask the question, can we please do it on such and such a date? And it's just protocol. And he actually looked at the documentation from the EAA, the, what's it called, the Experimental Aircraft Association, because they're the ones that run the Young Eagles organization, and there's nothing in their handbook. It's got what you do on the day, it's got what the follow-up is on the day after, and then any recommendations, but not before the event. So he's writing an official letter from MAMA to the EAA, just, you know, advising them that it would be good and common courtesy for everybody to know what the protocol is working with the airport. So he'll be doing that, and I've asked him to copy me. And I know Dan Walton, the chairman of the Pilots Association, is watching, so he should be pleased to hear that. So.
Yeah, we've never had, we also have a good Fitchburg Pilots
Absolutely.
Association with a great working relationship.
Fantastic.
So
Fantastic.
how this got missed, I'm not real sure, but
I honestly believe it was changeover of people at those positions. They just
Yeah.
didn't talk. And,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah,
I don't think it will happen again in all
Yeah,
honesty.
right.
So,
and we've never not approved an event.
absolutely not.
Yeah. All right, so we can assume that they're going to ask for permission on their,
They actually have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I had a written letter from Dan asking if they could have permission, please, to have a Young Eagles event on August the 13th from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And that would just need a quick, I believe, you know.
yeah, I'd like to do
vote
that tonight
approve
if
it.
that's a formal request.
Absolutely, it is a formal
yeah.
request. So if you'd like to vote on it, August the 13th, 0800 to 1300.
I would motion to allow the event for August the 13th from 0800 to 1300. Motion,
Second.
vote,
Aye.
Aye.
4-0. Away we go.
There you go.
New business. Oh, you don't have anything else on the Young Eagles?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
New business, okay. When Rich went to secretary position, we've lost our co-chair. I know that Beth had expressed interest in co-chairing. I assume that you still have interest in doing so?
I would be more than happy to do that.
Well, I would motion to elect Beth as co-chair.
Second?
Vote.
Aye.
Aye.
That was simple.
That was,
Thank you,
if
Beth.
everything was like that.
Thank you,
I thought maybe David would protest, but
No, you got
he
no
did not.
protest
He
from
did
me.
not.
What's your Gmail? I don't know why it's not showing up. Oh, there it is, okay, that's why.
All right. New business, item 2, annual increase. I assume this is a Peter Kettle item.
Yes, sir. As you know, since I've had this position for the last 2 years, the first year, because there'd been no increase in the rents at the airport, the initial increase that first year was 10%. So we put it up 10%. Last year, we went for the CPI, which was approximately 2.2%. So we introduced that last year, and the increase is every August of every year. And this year, the CPI index is running at about 10.5%. So it's up to the Commission to decide what the annual increase is going to be on the 1st of August, because we have to give the tenants 30 days' notice of any increase.
Yeah, so this is an increase for the tenants that are tenants at will. They do not have a lease.
Right.
So 2.2% is CPI under normal years. So 2.2 was easy to swallow. Definitely need the Commission's opinion. 10.5% of a CPI is high, and it's also very high if you're gonna, in my opinion, to increase somebody's rent 10.5%. I guess we could, is the costs of running the airport gone up 10.5%?
More than that.
They have.
No. May I just make a request
Yes.
or
go.
ask a question?
Uh,
What is the percentage increase that the city has applied to the tenants in Fitchburg? Because businesses and private are the same today, aren't they? There's not two separate, where there used to be a separate business one, but they're all the same now. What did the city of Fitchburg apply this year?
I think it's 2.5%. Are we still under that
You mean
rule?
the percentage of tax increase?
Yeah.
I think the percentage is 2.5, but that's not the complete picture.
No, I understand that.
Right,
But it's a guideline to start from.
right.
I mean, I'd really like to know tonight on what we're going to tell them, because I'll get the letter out, because we're coming into July, and then, I've got like 15 days to send a letter out to them, basically, to give them 30 days' notice.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to brainstorm here in public, and this is important.
What did we do last year, Peter?
2.2,
2.2%.
2.2?
because the CPI was 2.2.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be 10.
Now it's
It's up
10.5.
there.
Can't do 10. Too much.
Anyone else?
Well, you could always just go halfway,
Yeah, split the difference.
5%?
5.25%.
Would you like my comments? I personally believe that's too much,
Okay.
Why?
because we hit them with a massive 10% the first year.
Well,
Last year, we went with a common CPI, and I don't think it unwise to go for maybe 2.5% to 3%
Okay.
this year. Because, at the moment, the CPI is 10%.
Mhm.
Is it going to keep on at 10% for the whole year? I don't know. Is it going to go above that? I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball, but I don't. And I think everybody would accept, a 2.5 to 3%, this year, and then next year, if it goes even higher, then we can up it next year. And if it comes down, then we're back from 3 to 2.2, which I don't think is unfair.
Okay.
But that's just my opinion.
Mhm.
So maybe 3%?
I mean, what do we provide? We don't provide electricity for these hangars, right?
Oh, yeah, we do.
We do?
Oh, yeah.
That's on us?
That's on us.
That's included in their rent?
Yes, it is.
What about heat?
Heat only on 2 of them.
Yeah.
Because the others are, we're putting the new doors on 2 and 3, hangar 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And we plow them in the wintertime.
We plow them in the
That's
winter
included
time.
in their rent?
Yes. It's not included in FACT's rent. There's a $12,000, $13,000 increase, for the snow plowing and the weed killing, which we have to do because it's part of the agreement.
Mhm.
The 10.5%, that's a year over year? Is that what that is? Or that's not for just this month? Is that from a
It-
12-month span?
No, I think it varies by month.
Yeah, I think
But
it's gone up gradually
Yeah, it has.
in,
And
over
the
the last several
10.5 must
months.
reflect the last 12 months. They just come out with it every month.
In May, I remember hearing year over year, so maybe between May and now,
Yeah, jumped.
Since June of last year, right. I mean, you see the bills every day. And you also see the pain that our tenants go through to pay their rents as well. I mean, it's
Yes.
not like their income has increased 10.5% just because
No,
we're in a
exactly.
pickle.
They haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, in North America, the wages, the salaries have gone up, but not 10%.
Yeah.
So, that's why I would, well, it's not my position, but my recommendation would be 2.5% to 3%.
Okay.
I mean, I'm inclined to listen to our airport manager.
I guess my question is, can we survive? I mean, can we provide those services for that price and not go in the hole ourselves?
We
Okay.
can. I mean, the linemen have just had quite a large increase through the unions, but I believe that we can safely do that. And as we move forward, we've got item E on old business. That's going to address a lot of this finances that we're looking forward to move forward. That's the 7 to 9 new hangars. So that'll bring a massive revenue into us.
Okay.
I just think it's fair to keep it down this year.
So what percentage was your recommendation?
2.5% to 3%,
I say go 3.
Go through.
Yeah, 3.
or
Yeah.
2.75. It's
3%.
like you split the middle. I know.
3 is good.
Three's
I
good.
like 3.
I'd vote for 3.
I make motion, we do 3%.
Because like Peter said, we can always fall back to 2. It's not that big of a,
We could, and my fear is, we still have to heat these hangars. Two of them, right?
Yes.
so, Mr. Chair, you don't like,
can't-
Ener-
absorb the
Energy is
full
part of the
cost, we can help them
CPI,
out.
I would assume,
Oh, it is, yeah.
yeah.
so Mr. Chair, you don't like the number 3 then? You think we need to go higher?
I just want to be cautious. I don't want the citizens of Fitchburg having to heat a hangar for an entire winter we probably don't use oil, but gas goes up hand in hand, I would
Does.
think.
So why can't we?
And end up collecting no rent. It's too bad that it's tied to a heated hangar,
Right.
yeah.
So why can't we look into upping it during the winter months? Keep it low
I
for
think it's
now.
a year by year, or is it not?
Well, it's not just the heat. I mean, in the hangars that don't have heat in them, they plug in their heaters for the oil and in the pans to heat the pans up. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
so I honestly think that's fair.
I'm gonna go with Peter's gut. And he said 2.75 and 3. I'm gonna go with the 3. Rich motioned the 3.
Yep.
The motion's on the table.
I'll second that motion.
I'll vote yes.
And I'll also vote yes.
Vote yes.
3%.
Who second that?
I did.
Thank you, Peter.
Welcome.
Item 3, Valentine Eye Care. I would assume that's Peter Kittle.
Yes, sir. Just trying to find it. Valentine Eye Care actually lease a little bit of property with a sign on it on Bemis Road. And they've done so for many, many years. Mr. Valentine himself called me the other day and said he sold the business. He wants to actually move the sign over, obviously, to the business. And I asked him if he wanted to have a new name. He said no, he wants to keep Valentine Eye Care on there because it's got a name, it's had that reputation for so many years. And the new owner is a Dr. Christine E. Ayor. He's the new owner. So I believe all we have to do is get a copy of this and have him transfer this over to the new owner. Beth, you're the attorney here. Is that the right thing to do?
You're asking for a friendly opinion?
I'm asking for an attorney's, a free
You know,
attorney's opinion.
my rates are, no. I think you need to, is that a lease? I don't know what that is, so.
It's
I
an
don't-
agreement and grant of license.
Okay. Yeah, you would need a new license for the
Right,
new
just
owner.
change,
Right.
well, yeah, just changing the actual owner, but the actual name is staying the same. So I'll put that through to Attorney Pusateri then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Who can she make that invoice out to?
Peter Kettle. Item 4, IFE, Larry Gallo.
Yes, if you look at the documents that I actually passed to you, I think Matt of Gale knows Larry Gallo. My understanding is that he used to have a job doing, he worked for MassDOT at one time, and then he moved out into private consultancy, and he's actually offered his services as an IFE independent, what's it called, independent finance expense, fee estimates. And we've just done one, haven't we, Jackie? We did it with you. So what do we do? Just say, okay, here's another guy that you can consider in the future? I just wanted to bring it to the Commission's attention, that's all. So, and that's all it is. You know, it's not a recommendation or anything, but basically his resume is there on what he's
Keep him
done.
on a retainer?
No, just put it in the minutes that he solicited the
Services.
commission, yeah, for his services.
Could be.
Yeah.
I'll let him know as well. Okay?
Item 5, some more acronyms. MJTC.
That stands for Massachusetts Joint Transportation Committee. This is basically a 1 or 2 year position, and Commissioner Liberatori, Secretary Liberatori, sorry, has had this position for the last couple of years. And I guess basically they're asking the Commission if Commissioner Liberatori would still like to continue this, or you vote on another participant on this. And basically it's the joint transportation, it talks about roads, airports, everything, but my understanding is that the airport's never come up so far, has it?
Most of my attendance, and it's all on Zoom, it brings out, it involves all of Northwester County, but it involves DPW people and engineers, and it's a big realm, but all these people are related to the transportation industry. They talk about road improvement, areas, Sterling, Lancaster, Groton, everything but around us. They brought in the rail trail that we're involved in between Fitchburg and Leominster. And several meetings, I brought up things for the airport, but what came to, confronted to me was that most of the funding that comes to the airport is from the FAA, not from this committee. My feelings was I was spending my own personal time attending these meetings, not finding any value to regain for our airport.
Yeah.
I'll never say it's a waste of time, but my concerns and my involvement and my interests were kind of like put off to the side, and there really wasn't a major benefit of me being there soliciting for the airport.
Or any one of
So-
us, for that
So I
matter.
sat there and I did it, but my recommendations to Peter were, you know, they'd love to have us there and have our input, but it doesn't involve us.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You know, so it's a decision we have to make. It came down to a point where my time is as valuable as anybody else's, but there was no need for the airport to be there. You know, a taxi cab would probably be better benefited than the airport would be.
Yeah.
So, I am relinquishing my responsibility to attending those meetings. They're 2 o'clock, in the middle of the month. They last for maybe an hour and a half, but you sit there to listen to other people getting grant money and spending it, and you're just like sitting there, not necessary, so.
Yeah.
If we want to have a representative, fine. My recommendations are, there's no need. You know, they kind of harped upon us to say they wanted us there, but there is no funding for the airport through them.
Yeah.
So, and the time I did speak, they told me, no, you've got to go through the FAA for yours.
Yeah,
So immediately I said, so why am I here?
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Peter.
Mr. Chair, are we the department of the city that is benefited by this? Basically, no. So should this be returned to the city and maybe get somebody from the DPW to attend this? Because,
The
so
the
can
director
we,
of the DPW is involved.
so can we
Yeah.
just back out? That's a question for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess truth be told, you know, there's three of us that are full-time workers. We'd be stealing time for our employees by attending a Zoom at 2:00 in the afternoon. So, speaking for the three of us, I'd say that's a non-starter. If Rich has been there for, I think, 2 years, right? I remember when you accepted this.
Yep.
And it doesn't directly benefit the airport.
No.
Is it nice to have ears on the, and going-ons around here? Yes, but to commit a commission member monthly for an hour at 2 in the afternoon, it just doesn't seem like,
I think because we were part of the transportation movement,
yeah.
they wanted us involved.
No, I don't
But when
blame
it
them,
comes to
yeah.
the grant funding, we're not eligible.
Yeah, we're in
Right.
So
left
it's
field.
like,
Yeah.
okay, we get to see other communities get some serious funding,
Yeah,
and we don't. So
Yeah.
it's,
Well, I'm in full support of that, and I had no idea that you were participating in that, so thank you for
Yeah.
Yeah.
spending your time to do that.
yeah. I mean, I'm okay with not being on that committee from a commission's,
If they need us,
attendees.
they'll reach out to us and ask us to attend something, if it's pertaining to the airport, is my guess.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been that case for the
Not
last
at
2
all.
years, so,
nothing's ever come our way.
I agree.
Maybe a letter from the chair
Yeah,
to this address?
another letter.
Yeah.
Second one in 10 years.
Yep.
And maybe, could we ask in that letter that if there is an issue that arises that pertains to the airport, that we be included in that meeting, just as a guest, perhaps, without being a member of the commission? Would that be possible, or is that necessary?
There is a representative from the city, and that is the director of our DPW.
Okay.
More than enough. If something came or channeled down to the airport,
Right.
I'm sure he would approach the city and speak
Okay.
to the
And
manager
notify
and
us.
say,
Okay.
these funds are available.
Mhm.
So to have two representatives from the city,
Right.
I don't feel the need.
right.
Okay.
Maybe in the letter that you're going to write, Mr. Chair, could include Nick Erickson as the DPW
Mhm.
commissioner, the representative.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So how are we going to address it?
Action item, Chair Raymond, letter.
Yep.
And this commission's
You're
okay
going to
with.
send a letter to the MJTC?
The
Or are you gonna go
464
to-
Abbott Avenue?
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll CC Nick Harrison as well, and that's fine. Again, yeah, thanks for doing that for the last 2 years, and appreciate it. All right, hold on, my phone keeps switching off. Item 6, Convergent, another Peter Kettle
Actually, SCS, Rich.
item. I'm sorry?
SCS.
No, we didn't do.
Convergence on there.
Convergent is the next one, number 6.
You don't have number 6?
Yeah, I do. SCS.
Oh, all right, item 7.
Well, I guess we're not gonna cover convergence.
Oh, I sent out new minutes, that's why.
Oh, you did?
Do you
These not the
guys?
new
Yeah.
ones?
Okay.
All right, it doesn't matter, SCS.
okay.
Convergent, and basically SCS is a very, very similar company to Convergent. And if you
Okay.
remember, we were going to get a guy to come from Convergent,
Yes.
and, well, he actually couldn't make it. He apologized, and he said it would be better if we wait until the end of July, when the lady that's responsible for this area can come and make the presentation.
Yep.
So I went back saying, yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, do you have SCS there?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
SCS is a very, very similar company, and if you look in the documents I gave you, this is the flyer that they've got, okay? And basically what they do is they put up these battery packs together with car charging ports so that you can take your electric car up to it and boost it up and continue. And for a small, you'll like to hear this, Mary Jo, for a small area like 2,000 square feet, they're offering between $10,000 to $15,000 a year for that rental of that space. And ideally, they're looking for an area that's already has a road leading to it. But on the letter that I got back from them, they actually says that ideally this land would include a portion of an existing parking lot that gets a certain amount of daily car traffic, ideally. But we don't have that. But that area on the east side of 20, going up the hill, would be perfect because it's right on Crawford Street. So, I mean, this is the sort of money that we can actually get by just small little plots of land on the airport. It was 10 to 15,000 from Convergent, it's 10 to 15,000 from SCS, and there's like 22 acres there, I believe, for development.
Yeah.
It's a big, big opportunity.
Yeah, and it's green. It shows
Right.
showcases the airport. You can see the airport from when they're charging.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So moving forwards, I would propose that this is
It would be
taken
nice
on-
if they were walking distance to the new airport restaurant that we don't have yet.
Oh, you're the chairman of the commission, sir. You should get on to the mayor. So, you know, this is something I believe that both with Convergent and SCS that Gal get involved with, moving forwards.
Yeah. I mean,
Is
it's-
this similar to the, when I travel up north, you see a lot of, I say, some of the job lots or whatnot have this row of Tesla chargers.
Yes.
And you see people pulling in,
Yeah,
and so it's roughly
exactly.
the same thing.
Exactly the same.
So what they want to do is they want us to promote putting up their charge units on the airport property,
And pay for the rental
you know,
Yeah.
and they're gonna rent that property from
Right.
us.
for 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
So again,
It's a
this is
revenue, it's a revenue opportunity for us.
on aeronautical space that will eventually, hopefully, be approved by the FAA in the next 4 months, 45 days, if we're wishful thinking. So we can use that land at will. That's the nice thing about having the AMP complete.
Definitely.
So they want to come in and make a proposal to us?
They would do, yes.
Okay.
I'll go back to them and tell them that they can be on the next commission agenda.
Yeah, I mean, make them aware that we don't have a shared, a parking lot space for them at this
Right.
time. It's,
Peter, I would just say it's probably not wise to have Convergent and SCS present at the same meeting.
hey, let them go at it.
Because, you know,
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
It'll be a public bid anyways.
yeah, Convergent is at the end of July, so they're August. So we
Okay,
could
okay.
get SCS in for July,
okay.
all right?
And could I ask a question?
Yep.
If we were to take this under consideration, is that going to have any effect on what we do with, like, mass development with that plan? I'm kind of directing this toward Mary Jo.
Well, Mary Jo's next on the list, so
Yeah,
So we'll draw her into the.
apparently we will. All right, so yes, Peter, feel free to, we're willing to,
Yeah,
listen to
we'll
what they have to
entertain it and,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
thank you.
Old business, item A, mass development, site readiness, airport land, Tom S. and Mary Jo Bohart.
Thank you, Chair. And I wanted to let you all know that Ed Starzak of Mass Development is actually participating remotely. He's been listening.
Yep.
So I don't know if the organizer can recognize him. He'd be happy to be video if you wish.
Right there.
But before.
I'm here, Mary Jo, if you can
Oh,
hear me.
good, good. Excellent, Ed.
Welcome
I didn't want to
the,
introduce you if no one could
Ed.
see you. So what I have is a draft scope of work that Ed had, and he'll be speaking to the team of consultants that he's assembled for the site readiness project. And the scope got tweaked a little bit, but I don't want to steal his thunder. He can explain more about why the scope is broad. We don't need to get too specific because how these types of projects work, as you get into them, you may find additional things that you want done. But anyway, just because all the commissioners may not have, I don't know if you all circulated that draft scope or not, but I made hard copies just so you can look at it while Ed is talking.
Yeah, if I could just speak on this. I looked at the draft scope, and I had some harsh words that I relayed. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure Mary Jo has seen worse.
I toned them down before I hit send.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Thank you.
And because the diagram map, which is helpful, because it's showing, I'll call it 4 little sectors, that would be what they probably would be studying, and it's not differentiating the aviation and non-aviation. These are just the areas in general. I just want to make it easier for you guys to see so that while Ed's talking, if you have any questions, you at least have it in front of you. So, to remind everyone, the site readiness grant was awarded by Mass Development. It's a $100,000 grant for technical assistance to help the Airport Commission better understand the economic options, different use combinations, development options, things of that nature. Certainly not intended to be duplicative of anything that Gale Associates has done. Their work it stands alone on its own. But there's a lot before you get into any negotiations or go through RFPs that maybe there's still some questions you might have about what the market will bear or that sort of thing. And that's part of what it's intended to tease out. So I'm going to hand it over to Ed because I think maybe you all would maybe benefit from hearing from him what his agency envisioned as they brought site readiness forward several years ago. The city of Fitchburg was a beneficiary of site readiness at what we call the Sand Pit site over on Crawford Street for a couple of rounds of site readiness. And now this is yet another example. So maybe, Ed, you can provide a little bit more background on the program in general and then this particular project in the draft scope.
Go right ahead, Ed.
Sure. Thank you, Mary Jo, and thank you to the Airport Commission for letting me come tonight and speak to you virtually. Is my volume okay? Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Pretty good.
Okay. So as Mary Jo mentioned, this is a $100,000 grant through a program called the Site Readiness Program. This is a program, it's going into its 7th year. It's funded by the state, but administered by Mass Development, which is a quasi-public state economic development agency. You might know us best as the people who run the former Fort Devens. We're redeveloping that area as one of our bigger projects. So the purpose of the Site Readiness Program is to provide funding to municipalities, nonprofits, and similar groups to help them understand the development potential of their property and then to fund work that will help unlock that potential. So the work can be, it can be as soft as, master plans, but then it can also include permitting, engineering, and even to some extent it can include construction. It could also include land acquisition as another large category. We're primarily limited in the scope of our work by the dollar amount of the program. It's a $3 million or a $3.5 million program every year. So that doesn't fund very much construction. Generally, we end up making about a dozen awards of, probably an average of $250,000 each. And the work generally tends to be more along the master planning, permitting, engineering part of the spectrum. the impetus of the program, or the genesis of it, came about 7 years ago when it just became rapidly apparent that Massachusetts as a state, we were running out of good developable land sites, and that we needed to continue to grow that inventory. So that's what we've been plugging away at for the past 7 years. We've had some success. Certainly the sandpit site that Mary Jo mentioned on Airport Road is, I don't think we have any hard results there yet, Mary Jo, but I know there's some.
It's more than percolating. So,
yes, exactly.
Yes. I think the very heated industrial market is helping.
Right, absolutely. It's bringing demand out, pushing demand out from Boston and 495 further afield, but it's also absorbing a lot of the inventory of our land sites. So all the more important that we keep on creating more where we can. So the city applied for a site readiness grant last year in the FY22 year round of the program. I believe that the application mentioned that there was available land at the airfield, approximately 20 plus acres, which was sort of eye-opening for us. That's a significant site in eastern or central Massachusetts. So we were certainly interested to learn more about it. We've pulled together a consultant team to help us look at the potential for this land. It's made up of a civil engineer, VHB, who have been helping us actually with the sandpit site. But after our first meeting with Peter on site, we realized, I guess I had been under sort of the mistaken impression that the land was available for general economic development purposes. And it became clear that quite a bit of that land really was going to continue to have an aviation focus, and which sort of put us into a new, we don't do a lot of work on airfields, and we don't do a lot of work with aviation type users. So we sought out a specialized consultant who could help us understand the economics of development on airfields. And after we got a recommendation from some friends out at Westover who had just used this firm. So they recommended R.A. Weideman Associates. They're actually out of Georgetown, Kentucky, so they're not local, but they work across the country, and they help with economic feasibility analysis for airport projects all over the place. So that could be looking at the viability of additional hangars, getting some understanding of what demand is there for hangars in the region, what are the likely rents that you might be able to get for them. And I know hangars were something that Peter mentioned at our first meeting. There's certainly other aviation related uses too that I'm not sure that you're going to be interested in, but Weideman would be able to help with that as well. So we've pulled together this team, and we solicited a scope of services from them that I know some of you have seen. Basically, the gist of it is that VHB is going to look at the land and the constraints on the land. So they're going to look at things like riverfront constraints, wetlands. Although I understand that Gale may be doing that wetland task. So if they are, we're not going to be duplicating anything that they've already done. They'll be looking at utility access, grading, drainage, kind of the fundamental issues that go along with land development. And then Weideman is going to be there to really validate the feasibility of the aviation related uses that may come up as desirable. We would still be interested in if there are portions of the 20 acre site that I think you were talking about off of Crawford, where you were just referencing the electrical charging parking spaces. If a portion of that is sort of deemed not needed for aviation operations and would be open to more general types of development, we'd be happy to look at that as well. That's a topic that we're a lot more familiar with. And certainly there's a tremendous amount of demand for for land for industrial and commercial uses right now in the area, and that could be a great source of revenue for you as well. The process that we're proposing is very, very flexible. If you've looked at the scope, you've seen that it's not super extensive at this point. It's more of a framework of a process. And I really don't want to make it any more specific until such time that we can bring these two consultants in front of you and actually have a kickoff meeting, something of a brainstorming session where you would all be able to provide your more detailed input to them. After that meeting, they would go home, revise that scope of services, send it back for approval, and then the work would be able to start in earnest. Another thing about the site readiness program is that it allows for a lot of flexibility with respect to midterm course corrections. Like if we're going down, if we're evaluating something that just and we find a fatal flaw that's never going to let it happen, we can stop working on that task right away and not expend funds going any further into that, and we can pivot those funds to looking at some other aspect. So it's a very interactive, iterative process that we think gets your bang for the buck. It is a repayable grant in that I know you probably aren't going to be selling land at the airfield, but if you are ground leasing down the road, we would look to eventually be repaid for the $100,000 investment. We would work out, some sort of terms that are reasonable to the airport operations. We're certainly not looking to put a burden on you. It's a condition where the repayment only comes into effect if in fact you turn a profit on the site on the basis of this work. So it's pretty much self-reported. So I would not be knocking on your door looking for anything.
And if I could interrupt, it's also worth mentioning, and this was based on how the program was set up by the legislature and Mass Development, that it's over 30 years. So when you think of something like $100,000 over 30 years, it's a very small amount. What's key is the city has to be experiencing positive development and growth from this. That's what we all want. And then working with Mass Development, figuring out how much, per project or per year or whatever. But the ground lease was new. When we did this same type of approach at the Sandpit site, that site will ultimately be sold outright. But the ground lease arrangement, you'll likely have multiple lessees. And it sounded like, I didn't mean to interrupt Ed, but I just, from talking with Ed, Mass Development will look at these on a case-by-case basis to make sure that when you have a positive development, they don't want the repayment to take away the positive that you just got. It's something that's gradual.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Mary Jo. Usually it's an outright sale that we're dealing with. So someone's receiving a windfall, one-time payment of a couple $1 million, and we look to get our $100,000 back, and that's not really a big deal. We recognize that if it's a ground lease, that we can only take a much smaller slice of that on an annual basis. So I just encourage you not to be concerned about that. I also note that the draft scope that's going around, I think it shows, if you add the two scopes of services together for VHB and Weideman, it comes to $105,000. We're going to negotiate that down to $100,000. So there's no additional burden on the airport, on the city. And that would be in the grant agreement that we sign would make that absolutely clear, that in the event of unanticipated overages, et cetera, that you have absolutely no liability for that. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ed, one of the questions that Chair Raymond had asked about, in the proposal, the consultant had suggested at least looking at access to what I call the south easternmost tract. The land on the other side of the Nashua, the land beneath the Doubletree, if you will. And Chair Raymond had said, you know, is that even a worthy exercise? And I understand why he might say, why are we even looking at it, you know, for anything? But the fact that it was mentioned in the scope, I take it from when you were speaking of pivots, it might be simply to early stage look at that, determine, is there any, you know, reason to pursue it further? If not, then pivot and go on to other things. Is that the thinking that the consultant likely had?
Yes, I think we would do sort of a desktop evaluation of the feasibility of accessing that land, like a quick one. I'm thinking of, you know, couple hours of an engineer's time to look at the constraints and the various regulations. And if we see a reasonable path to yes, then maybe we decide to look at it a little more. But if not, I think we move on and don't invest any more in that.
Sure.
And that would be something that we could discuss at our, you know, at the kickoff meeting, is just how much effort to put into that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, Ed, it was originally suggested maybe 6 or 7 years ago that parcel of land be dedicated purely to solar, because once the installation of the solar is up and running, then there would be no need to go there other than for general repair and maintenance, I guess. And
Right.
there is access on the 1-4 end to actually get around the runway to access that area. So, you know, there is access there, but not for general traffic, because we don't want traffic going at the end of the runway when planes are coming in and out all the time.
Exactly.
So,
Of course, yeah, I don't think that's not feasible. And like, as people have noted, you know, a bridge, a new river crossing is probably not going to be feasible on a cost-benefit basis. You know, bridges are just so expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to say, you know, I'm happy to. I'd love to spend just a couple hours looking at it, and then to, if there's no opportunities there, then yeah, we can call that the solar farm.
Well,
And,
one benefit I can think of that cursory kind of a desktop quickie analysis is it could serve as a justification down the road when you decide on that passive use, and maybe others may say, well, why did you decide on that? Well, we did a cursory review, and this is what it revealed. So it's just a bit more backup, you know, makes all your decisions that you make feel like, you know, you looked into it.
Right. I guess the other thing I wanted to mention is just that, you know, when we think of aviation uses, you know, I hear you talking about hangars and additional hangar space and a restaurant. I guess I would, I work at Devon's 1 day a week. I've been involved in land sales there for the past 18 years. And, you know, we have as you probably all know, we have a inactive airport at Devon's, or decommissioned Army airfield there that the state police primarily use for driver training. But I would say 4 times a year, we get an aviation user who's interested in building a facility there, whether it's, you know, that's been different drone technology companies, different, you know, we recently had an aviation sort of, a mechanic school that was interested in locating there. There's other advanced technology, you know, versions of personal aircraft that are looking for spaces. You know, I think that's something that you might be able to accommodate here in Fitchburg as well. So, and I encourage you to think about, you know, saving some land potentially for that sort of larger scale aviation use, or aviation related use, let's call it. And I think the parking spaces with the chargers are certainly a great revenue source, but I would just encourage you to, you know, coordinate your planning for where those might go such that it doesn't preclude the development of some of these or the full development of some of these larger sites that you might have.
Yeah, if I could just comment, I've certainly been a proponent of this grant with Mary Jo and the Development Commission. You know, I didn't realize that we had to pay back the $100,000 grant, although I don't disagree with it, but, you know, certainly we would have to come up with some kind of terms. You know, I'm personally ready to have some kind of a kickoff meeting. I mean, we're just, you know, we're commissioners, we come from different walks of life. None of us are civil engineers, and none of us are real estate professionals. So, yeah, we need this information so we can make an informed decision, because it will ultimately come down to the commissions deciding what's going to happen there. I mean, yes, it's going to have to go to public bid, but those bids are going to come in, and we got to decide what we're going to do with it, and what might be our best value for that land. So, yeah, I welcome the input. And
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, Mary Jo has a draft of the grant agreement, which I think she'll have legal take a look at. Certainly the commission should take a look at it as well. But I think we'd be able to start, you know, probably in a month potentially.
Timing-wise, I can also chime in that the city council, whenever grants like this come from the Commonwealth or other sources, the council formally accepts the grant. And so that formal acceptance was sent to Finance Committee a week ago today, and Finance voted in favor of it, so it will be coming back to council on Tuesday next. And after that, there would be no, as far as timing on when can we launch into things, there's what Ed described, which is the city just formalizing the grant agreement. There's also the city council formally accepting the grant. All those things are happening at about the same time. So,
Yeah.
so like Ed was saying, probably within just a few weeks, you know, formally kicking things off. Ed, how would you envision that to occur with regards to the consultant team? The consultant who is not from the area, would he be a part of a remote kickoff, or do you think he would come in for the kickoff? How might that work?
We can't afford to pay for him to fly, obviously, on this, or at least not fly more than once.
We'd waive his
So I
landing
would-
fee.
Maybe Peter will go get him since he's in Kentucky.
Yeah, although, so he said he would either couple it with a visit to other clients in New England, or he could do it virtually. So, and then VHB is local, they're out of Worcester,
course.
so that's not a problem for them to
Okay.
participate.
Okay.
All right, all
Well, thank you.
Looks good.
right, thank you all.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Ed.
Did we want Mary Jo to address that electric charging station thing?
Well, I think Ed touched on it, as
Yeah.
if we were,
Okay.
just to make them aware of what, you know, again, we're only entertaining their proposal or what they, you know, intend to do. But we just have to be aware that we don't have a whole lot of land, in my mind. We have that 20 acre on item number 2 or item number 1, and then, I don't know, maybe 5 acres on item number 3. So I guess it would be wise for us to take our time and try to get the best bang for the buck, so
Right. And,
that's our goal.
yeah. And I guess that was my concern, I mean, not my concern, but my consideration, that we take that into consideration in light of all of this in the same package.
If I could, as an observation, there's no harm in having these presentations, you know, by these two competitors that do.
Yeah.
You're schooling yourself in something that could be not a central piece, but a little add-on.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and that's what Ed, I think, was touching on. Of the non-aviation areas, you want to be very smart and very wise about how they get used. This use could be an amazing attraction, because while people are charging,
Yeah.
they could be eating or watching planes take off, thinking about how they want to take lessons or something, who knows?
Yeah.
Right.
So as a result, getting people, you know, onto the property for one reason may lead to some other things which could be very beneficial overall. But this exercise, hopefully, will help you to fully appreciate the land that you do have. It may not feel big, but it actually, as Ed was saying, it was big enough to get the Commonwealth's attention.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. All right, let's, we've got quite a few items, but we're gonna go quick. Item B, door for lobby.
First week of July.
Excellent. Item C, R 4102A and 4102B, May 12th meeting.
Yeah, we had a meeting with the people from Devons, and it was a very good meeting. They're very happy with the way that the pilots are utilising TRACOM and also the Devons facility, and we're very happy from the pilot's point of view that, you know, everything's good. It's really opened a door up, which is great. It works.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the conclusion was, you know, I'll take, by next meeting, I'll have the door off the lobby, the door removed from the agenda, 4102A and B will be removed.
Yeah.
If you want to go to D, do you?
Oh, yes, tie downs. That's the FPA co-op has their rent tied into tie down fees, and it's a problem, and we need to get it fixed.
Attorney Pusateri did write a letter to the FPA co-op owners, and we are awaiting a response from them.
Okay, good. So that's action. Yeah.
Yes.
Item E, RFP for 7 to 9 hangars.
We had a meeting with Eric Sheffels and also his attorney, Peter Dawson, at Attorney Pusateri's premises on Saturday morning about 5 weeks ago. And it's all been put together by Attorney Pusateri. It's now under evaluation by Eric Sheffels and Attorney Dawson.
Okay.
So that's ongoing as well.
Item F, door roof for hangars 2 and 3.
I did actually explain that one is complete and the other one starts next week.
Yeah. Those are for doors.
Yes.
The roofs are on hold, or are they coming back, or it's going to be another fiscal year, huh?
It
For the
may be,
roof.
it has to be another fiscal year.
Yeah,
But whether they can actually, whether MassDOT can take that grant that they've already approved into 2023 is what we're waiting for.
okay.
So
The new door on hangar 10.
that is complete. The main mechanism's all installed. It works incredibly well.
Yeah,
We're just tidying up prior to having the building inspector come down
Nice.
okay,
and inspect and evaluate.
yeah. Self-serve fuel transfer to truck.
That's all complete. We're awaiting doing a test.
Okay,
So once that self-serve fuel tank gets low enough to put it in off the main truck,
Yeah.
we're going to fill the truck up, bring it over and put it in. And
Yeah.
that should be within the next week.
okay. Item J, minimum standards.
I guess that's down to me, but I'm a little bit remiss on it because I believed that I was going to get a response from all of you together as one response from the chairman, so that I could put it back into the minimum standards.
But you got all pieces of, you got all pieces of response from each and every one of us?
No, I didn't.
Who are you missing?
I
Well-
sent a response.
Yeah, I got it from Beth, but I didn't get yours, David, because you sent it to,
Yes.
And I didn't forward
Chairman.
you that?
no, I haven't seen that. If you did, I misplaced it.
No problem. I'm
So
gonna,
as soon as that's done, I can get it. But, you know, the good thing is that because we had the old one that was developed in 1973,
Right.
I can refer to anything in that 1973 version because all I've done is update it to modern technology with computer usage, cell phone usage and things like this.
Right.
So as soon as I get that, I'll put that together.
Yeah.
And then get it for the final going through by everybody here, and then it can go to the attorney and then to the FAA.
Okay.
good. Item K, the Pete store?
Yes, can I just put K and L together, because we were really waiting for the completion of the airport master plan,
Right.
which has now been done, so that's all part of that, so,
Both items are waiting
Yes.
for that.
yes.
Yep. Okay, very good. Item F, a financial review, approval for commitments and abatements. Is there any we need to address?
None at all.
Item G is executive session. There will not be an executive session this evening. Date and time of next regular meeting is July 20th, 2022, 6 PM at the Legislative Building, which is here. Motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
moved.
It's
25.
7:25, adjourned.